I've compiled a list of 10 talking points. And these talking points are all to help you understand my take on RV innovation versus RV evolution, because those are two really, really differentiating things and important topics to talk about. So the first talking point is not changing is a good thing. What do I mean by that? So when I was working with Coachmen and I was helping design this prototype Brookstone, one thing that I was able to do is talk to the supplier or the roofing membrane. Now, it's a TPO roof, it's not PVC, it's nothing crazy special, but when I talked to the manufacturer of the roof membrane, they actually told me they love the way Coachmen installs their roof because it's the same crew that's been doing it for a decade. They know how to do it really, really well, so they do a great job. They just don't run into a lot of problems. They don't have a lot of warranty-related issues or failures with the roof because the crew that does it has been doing it for so dang long. They've been able to evolve the process into something that has been very, very functional and reliable for them. So other manufacturers who are constantly changing membrane materials, changing technologies in the roof, actually may be experiencing more issues because they keep trying to evolve too quickly and they keep trying to innovate too quickly. And because they're trying to keep up with what the perception of what owners are looking for or buyers are looking for, they don't master a process that can actually make their lives a little simpler and reduce the chance of failure. The next talking point is that too much focus on fit and finish can actually lead to problems. Well, you might ask, how so? Why is that going to be an issue? If you focus too much on trying to make everything so tightly connected together, not understanding that RVs are going to flex and they're going to move and they're going to twist and they're going to go through all sorts of different types of conditions, you may run the risk that that fit and finish may actually come back and bite you in the end. Not having small gaps, not having the ability for boards to flex properly and to be able to expand and contract as humidity increases and decreases or things change can actually be a problem. And I think, again, when you focus too much on fit and finish, you run into those problems of flexing causing things to break loose. And I don't think that this is anything new, but I definitely think that manufacturers who have taken that evolving, innovative approach of making boards really, really tightly fitted or making connections in ways that you don't see the fasteners and making things look better, you run the risk that that type of technology and that type of evolution may end up not holding up very well in the long run. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't make the woodwork look really good, but I definitely believe that you should focus on attachment method and making sure that something's not going to come off and making sure it's not going to fall apart ahead of making sure it looks absolutely incredible. Now, this is a complete departure from the automotive industry, which spends billions of dollars making sure that the fit and finish of their vehicles hold up really, really well, because you're sitting inside of the vehicle while it's going down the road. So every little creak and rattle needs to be suppressed, and the fit and finish and tolerances and the way that they attach things are entirely different in a vehicle versus an RV. They use a lot of grommets, they use a lot of fasteners that are specifically designed to help eliminate noise and reduce rattles versus the nails, staples, and screws used in RVs. Now, should brands focus on evolution and innovation over doing it the old-fashioned way? In my opinion, in some ways, yes. If the evolution and innovation is designed to make the RV last longer and perform better, then I'm all for it. But if it takes away from something that structurally is better or is going to allow the RV to handle conditions better, and you're simply evolving to create a product that looks better, I'm not for that. I think most manufacturers should focus more heavily on the things that make the RV last longer versus the things that make the RV look better. If you can get both, it's a win-win, like Asdel. That's a great evolutionary, innovative product that is helping RVs last longer. Upgraded suspension, better tires, better axles, components that help you mitigate sway, things that can hold the RV together better and help you have a better overall experience on the road with less failure. Those are all innovations that I absolutely love, like the new Helix PinBox from Lippert, or the new touring suspension that uses coil-sprung suspension with shock absorbers, or maybe even their new slipper spring system, right? These are all things that were provided aftermarket. They were terribly expensive, but now you're starting to see them be included in more RV manufacturing builds, which is really nice, and I am all for that. So as long as the evolution and the innovation goes towards the way the RV holds together, how strong it is, how reliable it is when you're towing it, and it also can offer you cosmetic function, that's a win-win. And those are the types of things we should be expecting. Nobody's perfect. No manufacturer is doing it perfectly, but I can definitely tell you brands like Rockwood and Flagstaff, great brands to look at. If you look at their structures, if you look at how they do things, they're doing things in a really good way. Is there room for improvement? Yes. I think they should eliminate thermofoil from every RV they build. Just put a solid material in there that's not going to delam or have any problems. But what they're doing from a suspension, from a tire and axle perspective is phenomenal. From their floorboards, from their walls, it's all really good stuff, and I think other manufacturers should follow suit. Another brand that I think falls into that positive evolutionary innovation category is Alliance. You see them using a lot of really good components in their RVs that are designed to help the RV last longer and hold together better going down the road. And I think Brinkley even falls into that area. Again, as more and more units get sold on the road, you're going to see how these processes, innovations, and evolutions hold up over time. And this brings me to another topic, and that's why expensive isn't always best. Oftentimes, the more you pay for an RV, you get more stuff, more tech, more high-end appliances. And oftentimes that means when those break, they're more expensive to replace and they are harder to replace. The more technology that's built in, the more wiring, the more electronic controls for everything can sometimes lead to more failures. So you have to admire brands, again, like Rockwood and Flagstaff, and even Alliance, who have tried to simplify things in many ways and not using as many touchscreen technologies, using more switches and buttons, using things that are easier to repair if they break, cost less, and in many ways you can fix yourself versus needing to order a whole replacement part. These are areas that I think RV manufacturers should really take a closer look at, because I think what people are asking for today is something that looks nice inside. It doesn't have to look extraordinary. It needs to look nice, functional, but more importantly, it has to be able to get to where you're pulling it without things being broken inside every time you go out. And this kind of takes me to my next point. Innovation is great, evolution is great, but if it takes away from what you're putting into your design from a structural or reliability perspective, that's where you need to reevaluate where you're spending that money. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think any RV manufacturer out there builds a product with the intent that it's going to fail. I believe they build a product that they think people are going to want at the price point that they're building that product, with the amenities and the features that it has baked into it. So some manufacturers might build something that's relatively cheap on the outside but looks really nice on the inside because that's what they think you, the consumer, want at the price point you're willing to spend. Some manufacturers build things on the opposite end of that spectrum that are extraordinarily well built, but the inside is really plain, really basic, because they know that that's what your focus is on. They build RVs to the people that they think are willing to buy the RV at the price point that they're shopping at. So the Pumas of the world, the Catalinas of the world, these lower cost brands are always going to exist because there's people who want to be able to go into a dealership and spend 15 grand on an RV so they can get themselves into the lifestyle. And if that's you and that's what you're shopping for, then they're trying to make the product look and feel and do what you want it to do at that price point. That's one of the challenges when it comes to building RVs. Where is that price point? What's the happy medium? When you're building a $60,000 or $70,000 RV and you're right in the middle of the largest amount of folks who are trying to compete in that space, then you have to do things that are different. So do you spend your money on innovating and making your unit more reliable, or do you spend your money on better furniture and nicer colors and higher end appliances? Where does your money go, and where do you find that balance or that happy medium? In my opinion, and I've brought this brand up several times now, I've never worked with them, I've never collaborated with them, but Flagstaff Rockwood is one of those brands that I really think is that happy medium. They do things nice on the inside, they don't go crazy fancy. Material selections and things like that on the inside are always second to the structure, the frame, the chassis, the sidewalls, the running gear, things that they feel matter most to people who are RVing, things that need to be able to take the abuse of the road. And that's a reason why I think a brand like that is definitely one to consider when you're looking at an RV. So that begs the question, who's doing it right? Well, the answer is not really any of them. Some brands are doing it better than others, but at the end of the day, they're all trying to find that happy balance. And if you find a brand that you can say is absolutely doing it 100% right, you're going to find that those brands demand a price that's going to be outside of your price range. When I look at brands that are doing it right from a structural perspective, from a cosmetic perspective, from everything that check every single box, typically those brands are $150,000 and up for 25-foot travel trailers. It's pretty crazy. If you're looking at fifth wheels, even when you look at some of those brands that you think have a perception of doing everything perfectly, like Lux or like Brinkley or like DRV, you'll find out really quickly that they're not even doing it perfectly. They have a lot of their own issues. They have a lot of customers that line up for warranty-related issues, things that break. Some things are in their control, some things are outside of their control. You know, how a stove is manufactured isn't something they're going to be able to control. How a TV is manufactured, how an air conditioning unit is manufactured. What's in their control is the assembly process and what they're doing. But there's a lot of variables that when that RV leaves the factory and it's being towed down the road that are absolutely outside of their control. So brands that are doing it really, really well not only demand a huge price, but at the same time does not make them immune to problems, does not make them immune to component failures and issues with things that they may not physically put together or assemble themselves. So just keep that in mind. Now, the final couple of points are that beautiful does not mean better, and better does not mean beautiful. So oftentimes having something built really, 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 really well in a price point that you can afford means that some of the luxury amenities might be left out. It may not have, you know, the nicest color interior. It may not have the nicest, more modern features that you look at in a lot of RVs. It may be more traditional because that's what has held up for them. While at the same time, you may find that in some ways, because of the price point you're shopping for, that you're still getting a lot of wrapped cabinets, wrapped countertops. And when I say wrapped materials, I mean thermofoil. I mean cabinetry that uses pressboard material or MDF versus actual real hardwoods. I'm talking about areas where manufacturers try to reduce cost, maybe for a couple reasons. One, they might not think you care. Two, they might try to reinvest that cost somewhere else. Perhaps it's in better tires, suspension, and axles, or better sidewall material. But I do feel there is a market that folks are willing to spend money in for RVs that include most of these higher end materials while still being at a relatively affordable price point. And that's where, when I look at brands like Flagstaff and Rockwood, they're so close, right? They do so many things right. On their fifth wheels, they've switched to a slipper spring system, which is like an independent suspension system almost. It's a very reliable setup with fewer moving parts. It's what a lot of people try to upgrade their fifth wheel to with like Roadmaster suspension upgrades. They put torsion suspension on their travel trailers. They do a lot of things right that you want to see. They use marine grade plywood in the floor instead of laminated floors, things that are going to be stronger and they're not going to have that squishy feel to them. They use better construction methods. But then I walk into some units and there's a thermofoil countertop in there and I'm like, man, so close. Or they use something that looks not as appealing, maybe a two-piece shower that just doesn't look as nice, or the cabinetry, they're using like solid wood faces, but perhaps the stiles or perhaps the box itself is pressboard that's wrapped. They're doing things that are bringing the price down a little bit so they can reinvest it in the areas that they feel matter, not realizing that the interior also does matter as well, and focusing on putting higher end materials inside simply gives you a win-win scenario. Now, they still can't control how a refrigerator is manufactured, how a microwave is manufactured, how a water heater is manufactured. They can't do that because they don't build that. But how they manage those problems when they occur is something they can control. And I think that there are brands that are trying to do it right, and they just need to step up a little bit more, even if it means raising the price of their unit a few $1,000s to do that. So as we wrap this video up, first of all, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope the topic makes sense. One of the reasons why we're looking at both of the RVs you're seeing in front of you is because it was important for me to work with manufacturers who aren't trying to go so cutting edge that they may have a lot of problems in return for it. That's the reason why I worked with Coachman. That's the reason I worked with Surveyor. These are everyday people brands. These are not the type of brands that you're going to go out and spend $100,000 on a travel trailer or $200,000 on a fifth wheel. My goal was to work with brands that typical families are getting into, seeing how they hold up. And what I'm finding is that brands like Surveyor, who are relatively kind of a basic brand, nothing super fancy, actually perform really, really well. That's kind of a cool thing, right? You're seeing a brand that holds up well. I haven't had any problems with this RV, even considering the fact that we've towed the hell out of this thing versus the Brookstone. We towed this thing a lot, and it's held up really, really well because the process, everything they do is very tried and true. It's very, we've been doing this forever and nothing's really changed. Yes, they use Asdel now. Yes, they use a lot of things that are really nice, but at the same time, they're not trying to be so groundbreakingly different that they run the risk of having evolution be their downfall or having innovation be their downfall. And that's a really admirable thing. So if you can find a brand that you can really, really trust because they have a reputation for being maybe a little bit more true to what they've always done, while at the same time not going overboard with the evolution and the innovation and creating more of, let's say, an honest structure, I think you might actually find that those RVs may have less problems than some of the ones that are super innovative and super groundbreaking and always doing things differently. Unless that focus is on making the RV more reliable and stronger and hold together better when you're towing it down the road. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, drop a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.